You're standing at the edge of your backyard at dusk, keys still in your hand, phone dead in your pocket because you forgot to charge it again. When something shifts in the tree line and every hair on your arm stands up a full second before your brain even catches up. That reflex isn't modern. It's close to the oldest thing about you. For something like 6 million years, everything that has worn your shape has stood at an edge exactly like this one, with the same thin skin, the same slow legs, and nothing sharp enough to call a weapon. No claws worth mentioning. No fangs. No hide thick enough to shrug off a real bite. Pound for pound, you belong to one of the least physically armed predators that has ever tried to survive on this planet. And yet, right now, in almost every wild place left on Earth, animals that have never once laid eyes on a human being are wired to fear you more than they fear a lion. Not eventually. Not after some bad encounter teaches them a lesson. Before they've smelled you, heard you, or seen what you're capable of. That shouldn't make sense. And once you learn why, you'll start noticing the same instinct still running quietly through you every single day in places that have nothing to do with tree lines. Start with the numbers because they're almost embarrassing. The average human bite lands somewhere around 160 pounds per square inch. A lion's bite regularly clears 650, sometimes over 1,000. A hyena could crack open a bone you couldn't dent with a hammer. You have no retractable claws, no tusks, no armor plating of any kind, just skin thin enough to open with a kitchen knife by accident. Your top sprinting speed wouldn't outrun a lion that was barely trying, and it wouldn't outrun most things that actually want to eat you. Your senses aren't any better. You can't smell a predator on the wind the way a deer can. Your night vision is close to useless once the sun's fully down, which happens to be exactly when most of the animals that could kill you prefer to work, and when you'd have the least warning before one closed the distance. Strip away every tool you've ever picked up in your life, and you are, by any honest measure, soft. Which is, on paper, deeply embarrassing for a species that put a flag on the moon. So here's the question that should actually be nagging at you. If you're this poorly equipped, how did anything wearing your shape ever hunt, survive, or make it through a single dangerous night, let alone end up running most of the planet? For a long time, the assumption was that better weapons solved it. Sharper spears, tighter grips, harder swings. Weapons mattered eventually. But researchers studying the shoulders of collegiate baseball pitchers uncovered something stranger sitting underneath that story. A 2013 study led by biological anthropologist Neil Roach, then finishing his doctorate at Harvard, found that the human shoulder does something almost no other primate's shoulder can do. It stores energy the way a slingshot does, winding up during the throwing motion and releasing it all at once, producing the fastest motion your body is capable of making. Chimpanzees, your closest living relatives, throw things constantly. They just throw them badly, nowhere near the speed or accuracy of an average human. 10-year-old, which tracks if you've ever watched one fling something across a zoo enclosure. Roach's team traced the anatomy that makes accurate throwing possible back roughly 2 million years to right around the same period the archaeological record shows hominins hunting bigger, more dangerous game. That's one piece. It's not the whole answer, though, and the next part flips a little of what you just assumed. In 2004, researchers Dennis Bramble and Daniel Lieberman published a review examining 26 separate traits across the human skeleton and found that your body isn't built like a sprinter's at all. It's built like a machine for covering long distances in heat that would stop nearly every four-legged predator on a savanna cold. Long Achilles tendons that store and release energy like springs with every stride. A ligament running down the back of your neck that only shows up in animals built to run, not walk. Sweat glands doing a cooling job that fur-covered predators simply cannot do at that size, not without stopping to pant in the shade. You didn't outmuscle anything, you outlasted it. While a lion is built to explode in a 6-second burst and then collapse, gasping, in whatever shade it can find, your ancestors could keep moving for hours in the worst heat of the day until whatever they were chasing simply gave out from exhaustion. That's not strength. That's patience, turned into a weapon nobody else on the savannah had access to. This isn't just a theory about the deep past either. In parts of the Kalahari today, some hunters still run down a kudu or an eland on foot across an entire afternoon, not because they're faster than the animal, which they aren't, but because they never stop. In heat, the animal eventually can't survive moving through. The spear at the end is almost an afterthought. The exhaustion is the actual weapon. Put the pieces together, and the weakest predator on the savannah starts looking a lot less weak. A throw meant you never had to win a fight up close. Endurance meant you could wear a target down long before either of you risked one. Add fire to keep real predators at a distance overnight and a group willing to take turns staying awake to watch for them, and you get something no set of teeth or claws was ever built to compete with. But that still doesn't explain the stranger part. Endurance and a decent throwing arm can explain how a weak animal eventually catches something. Neither one explains why a gazelle 1,000 miles from the nearest thrown spear still bolts at the mere sound of your voice. Here's where it actually gets strange. In 2023, biologist Liana Zanet, who runs the Ecology of Fear Lab at Western University in Canada, set up hidden cameras and speakers at watering holes across a protected reserve in South Africa. Each one played a different sound to whatever animal wandered by. A lion snarling and growling, a gunshot, a dog barking, or a person simply talking, calm and conversational, in one of the languages spoken locally. The voice recordings weren't even threatening in tone. They were ordinary radio and television clips in 4 different local languages, just people talking the way you'd talk to someone across a kitchen table. The lion recordings barely registered. One elephant got angry enough at the sound of a lion to charge the speaker and smash it to pieces. But the moment a human voice played, animals ran away nearly twice as often and cleared out of the area 40% faster than they did for the actual apex predator that had ruled that ecosystem for thousands of years. 95% of the species recorded reacted the same way, from the smallest antelope up to animals with nothing left in that ecosystem to fear: elephants, giraffes, leopards, hyenas. Even the predators were more afraid of the sound of you than they were of each other. Here's the detail that should really land. Most of these animals live inside a protected reserve where nobody has hunted them in decades. The researchers expected that kind of safety, generation after generation of it, might eventually wear the fear down. It didn't. The instinct held just as strong in animals that had never personally been hunted as in ones whose grandparents had been. Ecologists call this a landscape of fear. A predator doesn't have to kill a single thing to reshape how an entire ecosystem eats, drinks, and moves. The mere possibility of you is doing all the work. So what are they actually afraid of if it isn't claws, and it isn't even the spear in your hand? Zanet's answer comes down to reputation. Across recorded history, humans kill the mid-sized carnivores of this planet at roughly 5 times the rate other large predators do, and the biggest carnivores, the lions and wolves and bears, at 9 times that rate. Think of it less like a memory and more like a rumor that never stopped spreading, moving through a herd, the way real news never quite manages to, fast, permanent, and taken completely at face value. That kind of one-shot, permanent learning isn't unique to gazelles and elephants either. Psychologists studying fear in humans have found something similar running in the other direction. People develop a fear of snakes or spiders almost effortlessly, sometimes after a single bad encounter, sometimes with no direct encounter at all. Building that same instant permanent fear of something like a car, statistically far more dangerous to you today, takes real, repeated conditioning. Evolution wired us the same way it wired the gazelle. Some threats get filed away instantly, for good, because the ancestors who filed them away fastest were the ones who survived long enough to pass the habit down. You're not so different from the animals fleeing that speaker. You just spent your inherited caution on a different set of teeth. You're not just another competitor fighting over the same meal, either way. To almost everything else alive, you are the deadliest thing that has ever moved through its world. You've never personally won a fight against a house cat, and half the animal kingdom still treats you like a war crime waiting to happen. Here's the part worth sitting with. Somewhere in the last few 100,000 years, being the weakest hunter on the savannah stopped mattering because you stopped hunting like an animal that relied on its body. You hunted like a group that remembered things, planned things, and never, ever stopped. No single wolf, no single lion has ever had to build a reputation that outlived it by 10,000 years. We did that, mostly by accident, just by being relentless, and every prey species on this planet has been quietly passing that warning down ever since, generation after generation, long after any of them needed to see us do it firsthand. Tonight, you'll go back inside and get mildly annoyed that the Wi-Fi is slow. You'll sigh at how loud the ice maker is. You'll grumble quietly that the neighbor's dog started barking too early again. You'll never once think about the fact that if that sound in the tree line had turned out to be something with actual teeth, it would have hesitated before you did. You're still standing at that edge, watching an empty tree line, feeling like the most vulnerable thing out there. Somewhere in that tangle of brush, something with real teeth and real claws may be deciding, right now, whether tonight is worth the risk of finding out firsthand what its ancestors already learned to take on faith. And whatever moved in that brush already knew otherwise. It has known otherwise for longer than your species has had a written language to explain why.